All right, I think it is good now for us to get started. So good evening and welcome. I'm a JD Roth. I'm Associate Dean of Admission here at Hamilton, and I want to welcome you to tonight's Hamilton Hangout focused on student research here on College Hill. And I just want to start out by offering my congratulations to the class of 2027 on your admission. Terrific to have you here with us tonight, and glad that you are going to get to explore and hear about some student research opportunities that we have. So our goal for tonight for you is that we're going to give you an overview of the different kinds of student research that happens here at Hamilton. And we're going to do that specifically by highlighting research projects tonight that our panelists, who are all senior fellows in our admission office, we're going to highlight the projects that they have worked on during their time here at Hamilton. We'll also touch a little bit on our unique open curriculum approach to your academics, kind of through that lens of research that these students have had a chance to participate in. And we'll also ask them to talk a little bit about the role of our faculty advising system too. So without further ado, let's kind of get things kicked off here. And I'm going to ask each of our senior fellow panelist members to hop in here and introduce themselves. So we'll start down there at the bottom of my screen there with you, Jack.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Dorsey. I'm a biochemistry major and a math and environmental studies double minor here at Hamilton. And then outside the classroom, I'm a captain for the men's lacrosse team. I'm a volunteer tutor down at the local elementary school. I'm on the student athlete advisory committee, and I focus on mental health in that regard.
All right, let's go over to you, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lydia. I'm from Hangout, Massachusetts. At Hamilton, I'm a history major, and then I'm a Russian studies and economics double minor. In addition to that, I have a radio show. I'm an editor for the Hamilton Historical, and then I'm also a writer and editor for Signature Style, which is the fashion magazine on campus.
All right, thanks, Lydia. Tossing it over to Will now.
Yeah, so my name is Will. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm majoring in neuroscience here at Hamilton. In my free time, I like to rock climb a lot.
All right, and we will close it out with Molly, an introduction.
Hi guys, I'm Molly Simmons. I am an archaeology major and I minored in creative writing. I'm from Toronto in Canada, and outside of class, I am the president of our mock trial team.
All right, thank you all for being here tonight, giving up a little bit of your evening to talk with our admitted students. So I've got one other person to introduce. You're not going to see him, but that is my colleague, Travis Moyer. Travis is hanging out in the Zoom off camera. He will be fielding questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom. So if you have some questions as we go along, Travis is your guy. He'll be down there answering questions. And he might even be able to send me some of those questions for us to answer live towards the end when we have a bit of time for our Q&A section before we close out. So there's a lot of ways that research can happen here at Hamilton. We have independent research projects that our students work on. We have our senior program where seniors are responsible for a thesis or a capstone project as a culmination of their academic studies here. We have formal internships with faculty members, a lot of those that take place during the summer months. Typically, we have about 150 or so students on campus over the summer pursuing research projects. And we have found over recent years, we have had an increasing number of opportunities for our students to engage in significant and in sometimes publishable, that you'll hear about later this evening, publishable research at the undergraduate level. Something that I believe, and I know that doesn't happen at every institution of higher learning. And I think along with that, it's important to stress that Hamilton is an all undergraduate institution. We're only granting bachelor's degrees here. No master's students, no doctoral students here competing for those research positions and opportunities. So as an undergraduate, you will have access to the faculty guidance, to the research opportunities that you might not be able to have at a larger institution, where you're sharing those resources and those available opportunities with masterals or with masters or doctoral students. Because in a larger institution, if it's kind of down between selecting an undergraduate or selecting a PhD student who needs that research opportunity to kind of work on and finish their dissertation, right? They're going to pick the doctoral student and not the undergraduate student, and that is not a problem you have here in terms of dividing those resources. So let's shift the conversation now to our senior fellow panelists and their specific research experiences. And I'd actually like to start, Lydia, with you. I know you have been doing some particularly timely research with Sharon Rivera, professor over in our government department, that has been dealing with politics and the Russian elites, and some of this actually in the wake of Russia's invasion in Ukraine. So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, for sure. So I started doing research with Professor Rivera at the beginning of last summer. As JD was saying, research is very popular among students here. And I really wanted to get involved in it myself. When I was in high school, I always thought that research was something that you did if you were in STEM, but that is obviously not the case. I'm in the humanities and I was still able to do research. So I approached my professor. I ended up taking a government class with her that was specifically focused on Russia. That was her area of study. I just really enjoyed having a class with her, and I asked if she was working on any research out of class, which most times professors are. And she said yes, and I asked if she needed a research assistant to really help her with any tasks that she needed help on. She said yes, so I started working with her. As JD was kind of alluding to, her research really centers around the intersection between personality and politics among the Russian elites, especially in the wake of the war in Ukraine. Really just, if those Russian elites are supporting Putin, and I guess, kind of tracking that personality and how it plays into politics throughout Russian history. So yeah, I really enjoy doing research for her. I will locate articles and relevant contacts for her to look out to. I will often organize data into a database, which I wasn't really expecting that I would be doing since I am in the humanities, like still working with data. But yeah, that's kind of what my research has been about. And it's been very topical and I've definitely learned a lot from it.
Take myself off mute there. Great. Thank you, Lydia. I want to move to Will now, who I know you have been working with Kelly Faig over in the neuroscience department, and you have done a little bit of a mix of summer research as well as semester-based research too. So can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like, both being here on campus during the summer and kind of what the difference is between summer research and semester-based research?
Yeah. So, this past summer I was, or not this past summer, but the summer before, I was here at Hamilton doing research in the neuroscience department with Professor Faig. This research was centered around mindfulness. And for the most part, it was basically gathering literature reviews and designing a potential study basically to tackle a topic. So this kind of culminated into a presentation of a poster to faculty, to students, and it was also done with in conjunction with other students to form a lab group basically. Now, one of the special things about research over the summer is that first you're on campus with a bunch of other students. I think generally the statistic is about 10% of Hamilton students who stay over the summer to various jobs or research opportunities, and so you basically get to you have your during the semester sort of communities and your friends that kind of form, but during the summer you kind of become friends with and you get to see just a different side of that Hamilton population. Because it is about 10%, so that's close to 200 students who are on campus at various points in time. This is a new group of students who are going to be quite close So you might have some overlap, some friends who have stayed over the summer. Might have some new friends that you'll make during the summer. And that couldn't be more true for me. Really, my experience over the summer was, well, firstly, I was the one, I guess, rising junior coming into a group of rising seniors. So it was a lot of group of 4 people, and then 5, including our professor. So 3 seniors, rising seniors, and me. I was kind of taken in and really just welcomed. They kind of showed me the ropes in terms of the various, equipment at the lab, and also just what to do on campus, as they had, 1 year above me in terms of experience here. And so it was really nice because we'd, do various events. Like, for instance, we went to a watering hole once. We went to the beach even nearby. And on campus as well, they had various events too. I will say, there's a nice Chipotle lunch at one point during the summer. A lot of students went out to that. Really, there's a whole community and various events. I remember my birthday was actually over the summer. And so a bunch of my new friends, all and myself, all were in the events barn. And we sang karaoke. So you really do get that community experience. And also for us, we were living in some of the dark side suites over the summer. And so these suites generally have about like 6 total people in them at a time. So usually 4 singles and then 1 double. And this also suite has a common living area with a kitchen. And so one of the big things about the summer is oftentimes you basically cook your own food with your friends and your suite mates. And it's a whole event where you can do like who's cooking tonight, who's cooking tomorrow, and it's a whole teamwork sort of collaborative feel in a way, and that was really nice as well. Beyond that, transitioning toward the summer, after the summer into the semester, really, it is a different feel because during this summer you are doing research each day for about 8 hours a day, and that is also paid research that you're doing with that faculty member. As you transition toward the semester, though, research becomes more so an academic credit aspect that is done on top of your existing classes and your existing extracurriculars. So perhaps not spending nearly as much time during the semester. So I would estimate, I think 2 to 3 hours, or 3 to 4 hours, perhaps even 5 hours of research per week, depending on which type of research you sign up for. And basically, you are still, working with that faculty member, working with various lab group members. And for parts of it, you're helping out with different seniors who are doing various lab or in research, I guess methods. So for me, I gained experience in a few programs. For instance, in the psychology department, they use a program called ePrime, which can help you design experiments and like survey-based things. And so this was specifically working, with a basically kind of questionnaire gauging sleep habits and the effect on basically reaction time and emotional sensitivity to different stimuli, which was really quite interesting. And this is, we also helped out on various other aspects of the project as well. So we, for instance, helped to run participants. So people would come in to lab and we'd, wear our nice lab coat uniform and really introduce them, welcome them in, and then have them take the survey as we kind of recorded results. So I think that was a very good experience. And during the summer and during the semester, certainly feel different from each other. Honestly, both of them have their own, benefits, pros, cons. I especially like the summer research because you really did get that community feel. Really, the biggest thing is I met a whole bunch of new students who I hadn't met before, and those students and friends, those new friends, carried on into the semester. And it was just another kind of group I would, spend time with.
Hey, thank you, Will. Kind of keeping on that summer research track for a minute here, I want to talk to Molly a little bit because I know you have had some summer research doing some data visualization, doing some data collection from, as I understand it, shooting lasers at bones. So lasers and bones. Let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm an archaeology major. So the project that I did over the summer between my sophomore and my junior year was I was using a 4-tier transform infrared spectrometry, which is effectively a laser, shooting it at cremated remains and trying to kind of understand what the makeup of those bones is, which can tell us kind of how bodies were treated before they were cremated. So a lot of my work, despite being very much a social scientist, kind of ends up in the science sphere. I don't get a lab coat though. I'm a little bit jealous of that. But that project was effectively a previous class at Hamilton had done the experimental work. And then my job was to visualize the data that was coming out of the laser and get it ready for publication so that my professor could publish it. And because of that work, I got to be second author on the paper, which was a really exciting thing for me. And that paper was eventually presented at the Society for American Archaeology meeting, which is the big international meeting of all the archaeologists. And I got to kind of be a part of that research with him. And then that project really kind of jump-started what my senior thesis looked like. I'm doing a very similar thing with my thesis, slightly different data, slightly different laser, but very similar kind of work with mortuary practice, treatment of bodies. And that project is with the same professor who is both my academic advisor and my thesis advisor and was the person I was working with in my research. So I've really been able to form a great relationship with him over the past few years. He has always made sure to give me opportunities and research projects that are around what I'm interested in. When I came in that summer, he said, I have kind of 4 things I'm working on. Which one are you most interested in getting done? And I got to kind of point out which one I thought I would be best at. And then use that knowledge in my senior thesis in developing a project where I'm doing all of the data collection and the visualization and the writing of it. Kind of having that basis in the summer has been a really useful thing. Now that I am basically finished with that paper, I have also gotten to travel to that big archaeology meeting and present my own research, which was a really exciting opportunity. And I had multiple people come up to me during my presentation and ask me if I was currently a PhD student, which was a really cool thing to be able to say, no, I'm an undergraduate. This is my undergraduate thesis. But I think it speaks to just the amount of involvement and trust we get with our research projects here, is that we're doing things that people would expect PhD candidates to be doing in their research.
Fantastic. Let's kind of move on to Jack now, who I know you have, similar to Molly, done both summer and academic year research that kind of has dovetailed together, right, in Professor Welsh's lab, and you're looking at protein and spore-forming bacteria, I think?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that research opportunity came to be was I actually had a biochemistry course with Professor Welsh my sophomore spring. And, I had the chance to talk about after class one day about, some of the stuff he was doing in his lab. And it seemed really interesting. And I expressed that I'd be interested in working there that summer. And, I was lucky enough that there was a position available and I was able to kind of take that opportunity, which was really cool. And, as Will said earlier, it's a full-time job over the summer. You're really diving in, you get a real feel for what it feels like to be a research scientist in my case, or which was awesome. And, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I had the opportunity to kind of choose one of 2 projects that were aligned with his general area of study, and I chose the one that was more on the biology side of the biochemistry. So I got to kind of work with cell cultures and, do membrane protein extraction and work with the ultracentrifuge. And, Hamilton's got some really amazing funding and resources. So, and, we have amazing technology. So it's really cool things that we can do in-house that are available to undergraduate students. And I used to joke about us breaking a $500,000 centrifuge. So it's a little intimidating on that first day, but it's really great being able to learn all these research techniques that will kind of help me throughout the rest of my scientific career, which is amazing. But yeah, we made some really great progress that summer, had some really cool findings, but I just kind of want to continue pursuing that study and help to maybe bring it to a close, because I felt like we were chipping away there. And I spoke to Professor Welsh at the end of the summer, and he said he would love to have me in his lab for the academic year as well. So I did it my entire junior year, which was great. And again, this, as Will kind of mentioned earlier, it shifts more to a limited time scale. You're working 3, 6, 9 hours a week, depending on what you can fit into your schedule, and you're getting credit for it as opposed to getting a stipend as you do when you're working over the summer. But it's awesome. I got to continue working with my lab partners and further those relationships that I made over the summer, and made some great progress. And we just got published this year, which is really exciting. Professor Welsh submitted a manuscript the American Chemistry Society's Journal of Biochemistry, which is an awesome journal, back in February, and it got approved. So it was cool, you know, taking some of my old images from the summer, some of that data, working with him to kind of formulate the article, and then, you know, being one of the quote unquote peer reviewers, the unofficial ones, you know, me and some of my lab mates, which was amazing, you know, really cool getting an eye, or I guess a glimpse into that process, and so fulfilling to, you know, see that article published and see, you know, my name on the list of authors, which is something I'm really grateful for, and really grateful for the opportunity, Professor Welsh. And then, you know, yeah, I also got to continue a different research project in my thesis, which has been amazing, working with another professor, and, you know, just the connections you form with these professors during the research is an awesome opportunity. My thesis advisor had us over to his house for a barbecue in the fall, playing badminton with his kids in the backyard. We did Secret Santa in the winter. So, you know, on top of the research opportunity, you're really connecting with the faculty on a deeper level. They care about you as a person, and, you know, he's been instrumental in helping me kind of pursue my studies after Hamilton as well, which I'm really grateful for.
So you've each, you know, so with, you know, the $500,000 centrifuge, and Lydia, who, you know, learning databases, and, you know, Molly learning how to shoot lasers, you know, and Will, you talked about some new technology too. So, you know, what I have gathered from all of your stories tonight is that, yes, there was a lot of research done, but there was also a lot of learning of platforms, of software, of procedures, of things that you hadn't been exposed to before this research. And so, you know, maybe a couple of you could talk a little bit about what that learning experience was like, right? And how you don't necessarily have to know, in Lydia's case, like how the database works at the beginning, or how to fire the laser, right? Or how not to break the centrifuge. So talk a little bit about kind of like, what is that onboarding experience like when you start to work in a lab or you start a research position?
Yeah. It's the professors are so amazing. You know, they're not expecting you to know anything coming in, which I think is really cool. And, you know, that was my thesis professor, especially. You know, I was using a lot of new technology. You know, we have confocal microscope, which it's an incredibly powerful machine. You can do a bunch of different fluorescence, bunch of different lasers, and, you know, it's pretty intimidating going in there and like this. You know, it's got to be a specific temperature in the room keep the machine cool, and, you know, it's got a supercomputer next to it. But, you know, he kind of goes in and he walks you through it. You know, they're there to help you learn. They're not expecting you to know anything, and they just want you to gain skills that can kind of help you in this research project and beyond. So they're very understanding, and, you know, they take the time, let you get comfortable with it, and then, you know, as you progress to the research, you're going to have more and more autonomy with this instrumentation and programs and all of that as you get more familiar with it.
I'll speak on one of the other things I like to, you know, just mention, because I think it's often not, you know, talked or really emphasized too much, is so you have you know, these research opportunities during the semester, during the summer, but additionally many science classes especially have, you know, lab components to them. And you know, for instance, you know, in biology and chemistry, you're going to be taking labs. And even in my neuroscience class, one of my favorite classes I've taken my entire, you know, 4 years here was last semester actually, for a class called systems neuroscience. And this one, you know, in these lab classes, you are using current techniques. Perhaps you're not necessarily synthesizing new data, new information, but these are, you know, you are still familiarizing and using these current techniques that are being used in the sciences. And so, for instance, with my, you know, neuroscience lab, we were able to actually work with rats, and basically, so there's this new, I guess, technique called chemogenetics, which is basically, you know, allows the targeting of a specific pathway, like neural pathway in the brain. And so you can basically activate a certain pathway. And what we did was we activated one of the dopaminergic pathways in rat brains. And this is kind of related to Parkinson's. And so we were able to basically work with rats with that. And we wrote a whole lab report with that. And at the time, and this is one of those, you know, cutting edge pieces of technology, chemogenetics, it was, you know, discovered within the last 10, 20 years or so. And then even further, you know, kind of speaking to Jack's point, with thesis, you know, you have, this is with a faculty member in both in the, you know, social sciences, humanities, and sciences. You are working with this faculty member to produce a, you know, piece of work, you know, paper, if you will, And for me, I happen to be working with one of my professors that I had a class with before. And so we're doing a lot of, running, PCR, running gels, that side of things, more biology oriented. And a lot of this is, coming into it, I didn't quite know really how to do these things. For instance, like isolating RNA from tissue. And so the professor does kind of walk you step by step. Additionally, you have these, lab group mates who also know how these techniques and are also learning with you. And so, you know what they say, like, three minds are greater than one. And so you're kind of learning collaboratively with your partners who may also, ask questions you hadn't thought to ask, but are very helpful. So.
Great.
Yeah, I can speak to it as well.
Sure.
Obviously, I was not working in a lab, but what I found really interesting about some of the tools that I used during my research was a lot of the time they were resources and different polling organizations that we had looked at and analyzed in some of my government classes. So I found it really interesting and cool to be going on them myself and collecting that data on my own. A couple that we used was the Levada Center, which is an independent polling organization. It's not affiliated with the Russian government. I also would collect data and information from Freedom House, which is located in the US. And then a lot of the time I was just compiling all that information, that survey data into SPSS, which is like another database organization. But yeah, it was just super cool kind of looking at different polling results, kind of seeing a lot of information that I had studied in my government classes, getting to use it on my own. And like Jack and Will have been saying, my professor was definitely there along the way to help me out. She was not just like, go find that information. She definitely was like walking me through, showing me how to use it. And yeah.
So we just got a question in the Q&A here that is kind of particularly relevant, is now that you've all had a chance to kind of go over and give an overview of your research, but how has the research experience that you've had here at Hamilton influenced your postgraduate plan?
I can jump in here because I think it kind of influenced me in a kind of atypical way, in that I don't plan to go to grad school for archaeology. I don't plan to be an academic, but the experience of doing research really made me interested in having more of a career in data analysis and working with data in different kinds of ways. And it was something that I hadn't necessarily thought I wanted to do with my life until I was sitting in the lab that summer and really deeply enjoying doing the data visualization. I learned R that summer in order to be able to get my data to look really good. And I really enjoyed all of that work, so much so that I kind of started looking into what doing research in tech might look like and that kind of sphere, rather than realizing that I wanted to be a professor, which I think has been the experience of a lot of the other people in my department who are now going to get PhDs in archaeology because of the kind of same experience.
Great, thank you. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the academic foundation that kind of culminated to make this all possible for you. Obviously Hamilton's open curriculum, it is probably what drew a lot of our admitted students in the audience to Hamilton, at the beginning, gives you a freedom really to explore your passions. I know from having some of these senior fellows stand up and give information sessions with me throughout the year that a lot of them have interesting stories about the open curriculum and how it kind of directed them or allowed them to find their passions. And Molly, you and I just did this earlier this week, and I thought your story was kind of interesting, and I wonder if you could take a few minutes to share. And then Lydia, I know you've got a kind of an interesting one too, so I might pick on you after Molly.
Yeah, so I came into Hamilton thinking I was going to be an English literature major, and that's something I had decided kind of at the end of grade 12, after thinking I was going to go into computer science for a really long time. So I have always been the kind of person who had a lot of different interests, and I came into Hamilton thinking I figured it out, it's English. And I during kind of my first semester, the very beginning of my first semester, when I was picking classes, I had an extra space in my schedule, and I was looking through the course catalog, and there was Intro to Archaeology, and I thought, well, I guess I'll take that. That sounds fun. I knew I kind of liked museums, and so I thought it might be similar. And I realized halfway through the semester that I was absolutely loving my archaeology class so much more than I was loving my English classes. And it was something about the synthesis of like real data, real kind of tangible information, and history, and like this kind of body of theory that I really loved. And so I called up my parents and I said, I think I'm going to major in archaeology. And they said, okay. And that was kind of the end of that conversation. But I think that in coming to Hamilton and in the open curriculum, it was really emphasized to me very early on by my first academic advisor, who was actually a dance professor. She was very on top of us kind of exploring and trying new things. And I didn't even know that archaeology was still a thing people studied. I kind of thought it was like a thing that we had figured out a while ago. And so when my advisor was like, take things outside of your comfort zone, try something new, I decided to try archaeology. And I would not have found that I loved this had I not had the open curriculum, had I not had that space in my schedule to just try things out. And that's something that I've been able to do every semester here since. Every semester I take one class that I just think looks fun. And it's something that has brought me down a lot of different pathways, to a lot of different near minors, and just kind of a couple of classes here and there in other places. And it's something I really appreciate, because I feel like I have been able to learn so many different things that I would not have tried out had I not been in a place where that is encouraged and built into our curriculum.
Yeah, I feel like what Molly was saying about really just experimenting and taking some obscure classes has definitely led me to the Russian studies minor. I had a pretty different experience when I was coming into Hamilton. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed all of my high school classes. I never really like felt myself leaning toward one specific way. So when I came into Hamilton, I really just sat down with my academic advisor. I was going over what I like, what I didn't like, what kind of classes were jumping out at me. Initially thought that I wanted to do psychology for a little bit. But eventually I decided upon a history class, and I loved it. So I decided I'm going to take more history classes. And my academic advisor recommended that I take a class with a professor who is later, she's my academic advisor now. And she was teaching modern Russian history, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was and still is to this day one of the best classes I've taken at Hamilton. I always have had like a weird fascination with Russian history. Like I always had it in high school. And I think this class kind of like reignited that. And as I was picking my classes for the next semester, I was like, like Hamilton has a Russian studies department here. Why don't I start taking more classes? So alas, I have taken multiple government classes in Russia. I've taken a Russian literature course. I've taken a Russian film class, which was super cool. I just think there's like many different ways to go about analyzing culture, analyzing history. And obviously that can be seen through the multitude of different classes I've taken throughout that department. And I think that being said, I was just able to form really great relationships with professors in that department and find professors who are willing to do research with me. So that really led me to that opportunity. And I think it just goes to show that, the open curriculum, it really does allow you to discover a lot of things that you never would have anticipated studying. For example, like I just took a history class because my academic advisor recommended it to me. And then that led to me tacking on another minor and taking classes that I'm really passionate about. So looking back, I'm definitely thankful for the open curriculum and, the structure and help that my academic advisor provided at the time.
So at Hamilton, we have a little bit of a tiered system of advising. So Molly and Lydia talked a lot about kind of their initial first year academic advisors, but maybe I can get Jackie and or Will to jump in here. for a minute and kind of talk about the shift in advising that happens once you declare your concentration in your sophomore year, and then kind of what the role of your major area advisor was at that point.
Yeah, so initially, as you come to Hamilton, you get assigned an academic advisor, and oftentimes this is a professor with which you have a class currently in your first semester. For me, I happen to be placed with a philosophy professor, and so they gave good insight on just generally trying out different classes, different departments, but also the philosophy side of things and what I guess focuses are for that department as well. And I think then in that transition, in that sophomore spring, when you do declare your major, you basically get get reassigned a faculty member who is now currently in the major which you're declaring. And so for me, that ended up being neuroscience. And I actually, and this professor is one you get to choose. As you kind of have gone through your open curriculum, if taken different classes in different departments, more than likely you will have taken a few classes in the major you want to declare. And oftentimes those professors are the ones you really fall in love with. Their teaching style, their personality, everything matches up with you. And so I ended up really loving one of my professors who was specialized in learning and memory. And so I got assigned them. Their name is Professor Bajanki, and he was a very good resource to kind of continue in giving advice and advising on just taking a few classes here and there. Of course, keeping on just not necessarily just taking neuroscience courses, but to continue using that open curriculum. But also, here's a great resource just for thinking about, hey, these are some important classes to get done early on, because they provide, for instance, a fundamental baseline of knowledge that will be helpful in other classes. And the other, quite frankly, too, advice on, these classes traditionally are very time consuming and require a lot more work. So perhaps you shouldn't take them all at once. So it's good balancing, and also just taking, different classes and making sure you're not purely taking, all math classes, all biology classes. And I think they're just a great resource in the sense of you get to know and develop that faculty to student connection with your advisor, in addition to the faculty you're currently taking classes with, for when you begin to decide who you perhaps want to do your thesis with, which will be declared in your basically the end of your junior year. You'll declare a thesis advisor, and you'll be matched with the professor that you declare. And these professors are the ones you're going to be working on that thesis project with for that entire senior year. And so you basically want to have those experiences and pick a faculty member that you feel you'd work best with. And so I think that faculty, academic advisor in your major will be helpful in better understanding and getting to know further faculty. And oftentimes students do end up doing their thesis with that, second academic advisor.
Yeah, I think the academic advisor for me, as Will kind of mentioned, it's really all about balance. They know the classes in the major really, really well, so they're gonna help you, balance your workload and also balance your schedule. Encourage you to, continue to try new things. I added an environmental studies minor in my junior and senior year. Like, that wasn't something I hadn't taken any classes in that department in freshman and sophomore year. I kind of stumbled into one my junior year, loved it, was able to add the minor, and that's because my academic advisor encouraged me to keep trying new things, which was amazing. And then another advisor that's been really helpful for me is the pre-med advisor. I'm pre-med here at Hamilton, and they're helpful in scheduling. They give you there's a few extra requirements to kind of check off those pre-med courses. So they have like the schedule they give you freshman year, and you can kind of go in and you meet with them every year before or every semester before you select courses for the following one. Make sure you're kind of on track to check off those necessary classes in an order that's going to be really attainable, and also kind of keep that workload manageable and give you that freedom to continue to explore. And they also are really helpful when it comes to, recommending that you do research, or that you do, and what you can do with that research, and how you can kind of take that and use that to get jobs, and continue your academic, or I guess your actual career after college.
So it's interesting, Jack, you were talking about kind of balance at the beginning of your explanation there. And we had a question come in the Q&A a little bit about, about balance, but maybe of a different kind that I think a couple of you might be able to respond to. How do you, if you're doing research during the academic year, right, not during the summer, how do you balance research and your classes and your extracurriculars, especially if you're in a high commitment activity like for sports or mock trial, for example?
Yeah, I know for myself, I definitely treated it kind of like a job because it is a job, it was paid. And also sort of like a fifth class in a way. I think a lot of times some students, if they are doing research, they kind of will treat it like an independent study. But a lot of the times that's when they're working on their own independent research project. For myself, since I was just working as a research assistant, helping my professor with, her own project. I really just treated it like a job. So I would usually carve out in my week about a 2-hour period that I would just devote to doing tasks for her. And she did a great job of keeping an organized list of tasks, really presenting that to me at the beginning of the week. So I always knew what my priorities were going into the week. So I really just think that, it's kind of like any other class or thing or priority that you have in your schedule. You just have to make the time for it and keep yourself organized.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that was really helpful for me in Professor Welsh's lab, he had a shared Google Calendar with everyone that was working in his lab, like all the students, and himself, and he would block out the times that he would be available to help you, the times that, and then you would put in the times that you were planning on coming into the lab. So we would have that schedule going into every week. And that way, when you would first show up that week, he would meet with you, discuss what we wanted to focus on, what the next task were, if we had to purify this protein, if we had to run this Western blot, whatever it was. It was just really it was really well organized, which kind of helped you chunk it out and you could work it around, your class schedule. So if I had 3 classes on Monday, I probably wouldn't be going in on Mondays to do research. I could do research Tuesday and Thursday when I only had 1 class. So it's just about time management. And then with regard to sports, Hamilton divides like the academic and athletic day really, really well. So from 8:30 to 4-ish, you can't have any athletic events. So you have all of that time to, not only do classes, but also kind of add that research time as well, which really helps balance, your extracurriculars and your classes and your research.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to dive into a few more questions that we have been getting here. Specifically, we've had a couple about kind of stipends and covering costs during the summer versus, how is research compensated during the academic year? So maybe somebody who has done both the summer research and the academic year research, what has that been like for you in terms of pay and housing and all of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I have not been doing necessarily a separate research project during the year, but my thesis was very much funded by the school, so I can jump in on that as well. So the summer that I was here, I was paid, I believe it was $500 a week to research, and the only cost that you pay is for housing, which is like $10 a day. So I was still making a significant amount of money from researching here. And then in terms of my thesis, I was awarded 2 grants at the beginning of the year that covered all of my costs. So that was just the cost of travel to my conference, registration fees, that sort of thing. Right now, we're organizing a grant to be able to pay for something that I need at kind of the very end of my thesis. So they're still able to do that as well. But yeah, researching here should not cost you anything. It was my summer job that summer. It was how I made money that summer. And it definitely did. I did make a significant amount of money doing this while I was still involved with the school.
So I know that another question we got here is how common is it for students to have their names on publications and to present research at conferences? And I think there's at least 2 of the 4 of you tonight who have authored papers that you'll be graduating with, right? Yep. Yep. I would say that it is fairly common. We like I said earlier, we pride ourselves in making sure that our students have access to do real world significant research. And if a part of that faculty member's research plan is for a paper, a conference paper to come out of this, or a conference presentation to come out of this, then there is a pretty large chance of them including their research team members on that in that authorship, or being able to, as Molly kind of outlined, work to raise grant funds to bring them to that conference to present that paper, to present that poster, whatever whatever form that research has taken. Another question that we have here, and this is one that I probably hear, oh, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but I'm giving information sessions, is how do I get started, right? I want to do research, but I'm a first year student, and this is all so confusing and new. Like, what is the best way? What would your advice be to students who are coming in as first year students and they've got an inkling that they want to do research? What's a good path for them?
Yeah. So I think the biggest advice, especially in your first year, I mean, so firstly, when you come onto campus after orientation, you are really going to have, all these students, all these new peers you're going to get to know, and you're going to attend first day of classes and have new professors and whatnot. Really, you're going to meet a lot of new people in that in those first couple of months. And so on that same vein, really, getting to know your faculty. Well, firstly, you're going to have most likely 4 faculty at the start of this, the semester, the first semester, which you're taking classes with. But even beyond that, on the website, Hamilton's website, we have, all the various faculty in the different departments and their areas of research as well. And so one of the big things that happened to me in my first year is you have, class with a professor, and oftentimes these are going to be including, group work projects and whatnot. And so one of the big emphases was you can reach out to these professors. So the faculty which you're taking classes with will obviously have office hours, and you can attend these office hours for help with coursework and whatnot. But additionally, you don't have to necessarily be taking a class with faculty to meet with them, and just inquire about their research. So that'd be the first step, is really reaching out, inquiring, asking professors. This could be face-to-face, through email, whatnot, but really expressing interest in specific topics, especially if the professor's line of study is similar to something you're interested in. And then beyond that, it's really just developing those relationships further with the professors, because ultimately you are going to be, should you do research, you will be working under a professor for that opportunity.
Anybody else have anything to add to Will's advice?
Yeah, I also just think like putting yourself out there. I think that there are so many opportunities available to Hamilton students. And I really just think that, going out, seeking those opportunities and, utilizing those resources like professors who are ready to be available to you is just a really great way to get started during your freshman year. I know when I was coming in my first year here, the thought of doing research didn't even cross my mind because again, I didn't really think that it was a possibility for me to do in the humanities. But I think that obviously, as we've all been talking about today, we all come from different academic backgrounds and we were able to do it. And I think that Hamilton also does a very nice job at popularizing and promoting how you can go about getting a grant. There are multiple different ways you can get one, multiple different services here. And so I really just think that taking advantage of those opportunities and utilizing resources is the best advice you can get.
Thanks, Lydia. So we are kind of running short on time, so I'm going to do a quick lightning round where take about a minute or so, and you're speaking to admitted students. Many of them have not yet made their deposit and selected Hamilton. So if you are still waiting, right, May 1 deadline is coming up. But what is one piece of advice that you can give our admitted students about Hamilton and why they should choose us here before that deadline approaches? Why don't we start with you, Will?
Yeah. So I think firstly, Hamilton really is a school with amazing community. And so I think that's the reason many students choose to come here. And I think a lot of that is influenced, informed by the open curriculum. So I mean, firstly, the open curriculum here is one of the big draws of the school. And with that comes students who are, passionate about the classes they're taking. They're passionate about multiple subjects, multiple different areas, multiple disciplines. And so they are, curious, like intellectually curious and want to take these different classes. And so what that means is firstly, you're going to be in classes with other students who are passionate about the topic and actually there to learn. Secondly, you're also, going to be surrounded by a community of people who just are curious about something, who care about something. And oftentimes, I find that these, various passions and hobbies people have, aren't necessarily straightforward. They're very multifaceted, and really, you'll find yourselves in conversations just with students about random topics that you never known anything about that they happen to be an expert in.
Wants to go next? Sure, you go, Jack.
Okay. I think the biggest thing about Hamilton, kind of closely related to Will's, that has stood out to me in my time here, is how supportive everyone is. From a research point of view, after I did some research, I presented on family weekend. We had alumni there, we had some donors there, so it was really cool talking to all them. I also had like 40 friends come to my presentation, and most of them had no idea what I was talking about. They were just there to support me, which I think is really cool. And in your research and your extracurriculars and your thesis presentations, whatever it is, you're going to be really supported by the community and the people you meet here, which I think is amazing. And then kind of tangentially to that, my biggest piece of advice would be keep an open mind and try new things. As Lydia was saying, there's so much opportunity here, and I wish I could go back and recognize how many different things I could do and the resources I could take advantage of as a freshman. I've learned more and more about what's available every year. So keep an open mind and try new things would be my biggest piece of advice to you all if you choose to come here.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything that Will and Jack have said. I know that I haven't personally presented my research myself, but I've gone to my other friends who've done research. One of them, she did research in women and gender studies. Another, she did research in physics, which again, I feel like it just goes to show how many different departments will do research here. But I would say that I think one of my favorite parts about Hamilton has really just been the faculty. I know, especially in the history department, I really haven't gone wrong with any of the professors that I've had. And so many of them are just so knowledgeable and passionate about what they're teaching that I feel like it really just makes their students excited about what they're learning, makes them care more. And like Jack and Will were saying, that is really a commonality of a lot of Hamilton students is they really care what they're learning about. They're curious. They have kind of obscure but interesting passions. And I would definitely echo what Jack said. I think just keep an open mind. There are so many opportunities available to you here. And I think one of those great opportunities is forming close relationships with your professors. I know that's been something I've really valued during my time at Hamilton. It allowed me to have a research experience here. And I just think that by getting to know them better, you're only improving your Hamilton experience. So yeah, I think that was what my advice would be.
Yeah, I think kind of in the research vein, the thing that I have realized about Hamilton that I don't think was necessarily on my radar when I was picking a school is that I have had access to resources here that are just kind of out of the realm of possibility. It has been an absolutely amazing experience. I know, Jack, you were joking about breaking the $500,000 centrifuge. I have had a professor joke that he wouldn't be that mad if I broke a $500,000 microscope. So just kind of having the ability to access these things and having autonomy with them too is so unusual. I had a professor that I was talking to about my thesis and about the laser that I'm using, and he said, "Oh, we had one of those at my grad school, but the undergrads weren't allowed to touch it." And I sit in a room with that microscope every day by myself. I got trained on it, and the director of it said, "Okay, come on in whenever you want." And I think being able to do that as an undergrad is so unusual, and having just the amount of trust and access to these things is an opportunity that you can't get at a lot of other places. And Hamilton is a place where that is not only possible, but encouraged. Professors want to give you that autonomy and they want to give you that trust with just absolutely amazing resources. So I think that is kind of the biggest thing that I have noticed about Hamilton that I don't think I was thinking about when picking a school.
All right. Well, thank all of you for that thoughtful advice, and thank you for your time here this evening, sharing your research experiences with our prospective students, or our admitted students. I know that it will be very helpful for them as they get ready, in some cases, to make their transition to Hamilton, or if they get ready to make their decision about Hamilton. I have just learned, actually, looking at my email here a minute or two ago, that the alumni office will be sponsoring a talk from the neuroscience department, Professor Siobhan Robinson and her students who have done some research. They'll be presenting about that on Monday, and we've been told that we can invite you to that talk. So I will send an email out to all of our participants here, or all of our attendees here tonight, with information about how you can register for that talk held by the alumni office, because I think it's another great opportunity for you to learn about research. Again, it was kind of late breaking, so we just learned about that a few minutes ago. So I'll follow up, look out for an email from me either tomorrow or on Saturday. I'll get that out to you with some registration information. It's at also at 7 o'clock on Monday, next Monday, the 24th. And we have one final event in the admission office's Hamilton Hangout series for admitted students. Next week on Thursday, the 27th, also at 7 o'clock, we have a panel on outcomes and careers. So what happens after Hamilton? And that will be staffed by Dean of Admission John McLaughlin with 3 of our early career alumni who've graduated in the last couple of years and are out in the industry and out in workforce now, and how Hamilton helped that happen for them. So that one you can sign up for now at hamilton.edu/celebrate. And the other opportunity, Monday's opportunity, you will get an email from me about that in the next day or so. So thank you again for coming tonight. I'm glad that we had a chance to talk and share about research opportunities with you. And thank you to my senior fellow panelists for sharing a little bit of their evening with you tonight. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.